She stood in the shadows, unseen, unheard. Just one woman, lost in a sea of worshippers. No name etched in scrolls, no crown upon her head. Only an ache so deep it stole her words. But what the world ignored, heaven recorded. Year after year she came, silently, broken, mocked, overlooked, empty. This is the story of Hannah, the woman whose womb was closed, but whose faith opened the gates of destiny. In the quiet hills of Ramah lived a woman whose silence spoke louder than words. Her name was Hannah. She had a home, a husband who loved her, but no child to hold. And in those days, a barren woman was not just empty. She was broken, invisible, ashamed. Elkanah, her husband, tried to fill the void with gifts and affection. He gave her more than he gave anyone else. But no portion could quiet the ache in her soul. Hannah stood among the crowd, her eyes drawn to a young mother cradling her baby. The mother's smile, the baby's laughter. It was beautiful. And in that single moment, joy became a knife that pierced her heart. She turned away, blinking back tears, not just from longing, but from the cruel voice behind her. Peninnah, the other wife, the one with children, the one who used her blessings like weapons. Her words weren't loud, but they cut deep. Mockery wrapped in smiles, pity laced with poison. Year after year, the same cruel dance. Peninnah, blessed with sons and daughters, wielded her motherhood like a sword. Each temple visit became a battlefield, and Hannah was the target. "Still no child, Hannah?" she would whisper with a smirk. "Perhaps the Lord has forgotten you." Her words venomous, her laughter loud. And Hannah, she smiled faintly, then looked away, hiding the tears that threatened to fall. But deep within her aching soul, a prayer, raw and desperate, was forming. One that would shake heaven itself. In the bitterness of her soul, she wept. But this time, she didn't fight back. She didn't lash out. She didn't run. Hannah knelt in the quiet of the temple and did something, and heaven stood still to listen. She prayed, but not with eloquent words. This was a cry too deep for sound. Her lips moved, but no voice came out. Only pain, only faith. She poured out her soul like water before the Lord, tears spilling freely onto the stone floor, heart trembling, hands clenched. This wasn't just a woman begging for a child. This was a woman laying down her entire soul before the only one who could understand it. "Lord, if you will remember me," she whispered, "if you give me a son, I'll give him back to you." A vow, born not from bargaining, but surrender. A mother, willing to give up the very miracle she begged for, just to see God move. But not everyone understood. From across the room, the priest Eli watched her in confusion, her shaking body, her silent mouth. He thought she was drunk. He didn't see a woman in prayer. He saw a woman out of control. But when she spoke, everything changed. "I am not drunk," she said softly. "I'm pouring out my soul before the Lord." And suddenly, Eli saw it too. The depth, the faith, the desperation wrapped in reverence. He stepped closer and said the words that broke the silence of her suffering. "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him." In that moment, Hannah rose. Not because she had a child, but because she had faith. Something shifted in her spirit. A quiet knowing God had heard her. She wiped her tears, ate for the first time in days, and left the temple with a peace she couldn't explain. The weight hadn't vanished, but the despair had. Heaven had heard her whisper, and heaven would answer. Journeying back home, Eli's words still echoed in her soul. "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you asked of him." And somehow, that was enough. For the first time in years, Hannah walked without the weight of sorrow. Her face no longer downcast, her steps no longer heavy. The woman who had wept in silence was now filled with peace, not because she held her child, but because she trusted the one who held her heart. When Hannah got home, she carried no child in her arms, but she carried something just as powerful: peace. The woman who had left in anguish now walked with quiet strength, her face lifted, her eyes steady, her silence no longer sorrow, but surrender. Elkanah saw her, and in her stillness, he sensed the storm had passed. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. Sometimes the greatest faith speaks in stillness, and love listens with awe. That night, Hannah and Elkanah came together as husband and wife. But this time, something was different. This was no longer the cry of a barren woman, but the worship of a woman who believed. No fear, no doubts, just stillness, and a God who had not forgotten. The Lord remembered her, and from that quiet union, a miracle began to take shape. Deep within her, life stirred. The answer was already growing inside her womb, unseen, yet fully known by the one who formed it. Days turned into weeks, and then something changed. Her strength waned, her appetite shifted. A strange tiredness settled over her body. At first, she said nothing. She didn't dare hope too soon. But deep inside, something whispered to her spirit. Life has begun. She placed her hand over her womb. This time, not in longing, but in awe. God had not only heard her cry, He had answered, quietly, softly. A miracle was forming beneath her ribs, and for the first time, her tears were not of sorrow, but of wonder. That evening she stood by the door, watching Elkanah return from the field. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from the overwhelming joy she could barely contain. He looked up and saw her, and he smiled, as he always did. But this time, she didn't just smile back. She took his hand, placed it gently over her stomach, and whispered 3 words that cracked the silence. I am with child. For a moment, time stood still. Elkanah's eyes filled with tears, not the tears of confusion, but of knowing, of prayers answered. He held her close, and in that embrace, every year of waiting melted into one sacred moment. And the Lord remembered Hannah. What once felt like silence from heaven was answered with life. The days of weeping were over, the nights of silent prayers replaced by songs of worship. God had opened her womb. Month after month, the promise grew inside her. And then, the day came. A son. Her arms, once empty, now held the answer to her deepest prayer. She named him Samuel, because I asked the Lord for him. This child was not just a baby. He was a testimony, a miracle, a living vow between a woman and her God. And in that moment, everything made sense. The waiting, the weeping, the whispers of doubt, all of it had led to this, not just the birth of a child, but the birth of a legacy. And just like that, the curtain falls on Hannah's journey, a testimony that God never forgets the cries of the faithful. Thank you so much for watching Hannah's incredible journey, a journey of heartbreak and hope, of surrender and answered prayer. Hers is not just a story from ancient times. It's our story, a reminder that even in the silence, God is listening. Even in the waiting, He is working. And no matter how long the night, morning will come. Hannah didn't just pray, she poured out her soul. She didn't just receive, she gave back. And through her pain, a prophet was born. But this is just the beginning. Soon, we'll follow the footsteps of Samuel, the boy who grew up in the very presence of God, and whose life would shape the destiny of a nation. If Hannah's story moved your heart, please like this video, subscribe for more powerful Bible stories, and drop a comment below. Which part of her journey inspired you the most, and why? We read every message, and your words are part of this mission. Until next time, keep praying, keep trusting, and remember, no prayer is ever wasted, and no tear unseen. The God who remembered Hannah still remembers you.